No other game has taught me the nature of human stupidity in quite the same way this massive spaceship game EVE Online has. And the hilarious thing about this is to play EVE in a competitive way, it only requires some intelligence, and yet the game also attracts some of the biggest morons I've ever seen in my life. And some of these people will spend thousands of dollars in a very short period of time thinking that if they have the bigger and better ship, or a nice big space station, or very expensive weapons and ship modules, that they can get ahead and win. They are wrong. And more often than not, such fools find their investment blown out of the stars or stolen in the game, never to return again. So I will explain to you how this happens in this game. First, let me just do a short recap about the nature of EVE Online. EVE Online is a massive multiplayer space game that's been around since 2004. It was pretty much the first multiplayer game where all the players shared one instance maintained by a powerful server. Fast forward 20 years later, and about 20 to 30,000 players are logged into the game at any given time. Sometimes more, sometimes less. But they're roaming thousands of star systems where they mine, build stuff, trade, hunt for loot, and fight. Quite often fight each other for those who have an aggressive mindset. In fact, it's hard to play EVE and not compete over something with someone in some way, even if it is just getting your resources sold on the totally player-driven market. What makes EVE stand out, though, is once your ship or station or resources have been destroyed in space, gambled away, or, oops, accidentally given away, there is no way to get them back, and this is by design. There are no checkpoint saves or ship respawning options, no recourse for player mistakes or hubris. Once, say, a ship of yours gets blown up, the replacement has to come from your own in-game wallet or in-game resources. Some say this makes the game toxic, but I don't agree. It forces intelligent people to learn from their mistakes, or get help from new friends that they might make, build trust in an otherwise paranoid environment, and accomplish things that are hard through sweaty brows and shaky hands, which is what makes EVE unlike anything else I have played. How does real-world money come into it? I will try to succinctly explain it. Now you can play EVE for free with what is called a non-subscribed alpha account, but there are many restrictions in ships and there are certain caps placed on your character. You can subscribe with a monthly to yearly fee and have these alpha account restrictions lifted, but you can also pay for your subscriptions with in-game money if you're really good at making it, and most people aren't that great at this. It takes a lot of time to grind. And the reverse is true. You can open up your wallet and buy a currency called Plex, which can then be sold for in-game money called ISK or interstellar credits. And with ISK you can buy almost all the relevant ships and items in EVE. This could be from special edition tournament frigates all the way up to Titan warships that are so massive they rival some of the super dreadnoughts you might see in the Star Wars universe. You can now see where I'm starting to go with this. I make this video now because I've recently witnessed some of the most insane real money blown on EVE. I won't name names, but it baffles me how this happens. I'll give you a couple of real scenarios I've recently witnessed. Now there is this big area of space called high security space, or HiSec for short, meaning if you shoot at other players without provocation, the super powerful Concord police force will then come along and utterly destroy your ship for a blatantly criminal act. Not so in other parts of EVE space, but at least in HiSec you have some protection that will always come and blow up the aggressor. How soon they come depends on the security level of the HiSec system. And there is actually a very handy safety button which is set to green by default to prevent less experienced players from accidentally, say, firing their weapons at an innocent in HiSec. This safety can be turned to yellow or red, and red allows you to shoot people in HiSec. Some people deliberately attack others, knowing that their ship will be blown up by the police. And they do this for a variety of reasons. This is called suicide ganking. But there's also an in-between state called suspect. So if your safety is set to yellow, you can then sort of steal from other people's spaceship wrecks or loot and salvage, or take from people's jettisoned space canisters. This will make you flashy yellow on everyone's heads-up display or suspect for 15 minutes only, which means in that 15-minute window, if people have their safety set to yellow or red, they can legally shoot the suspect without police intervention. And suspects often use this as a way of baiting people into fights or just general PvP in an otherwise PvP-free zone. So this guy wants to PvP in HiSec, so he goes out and buys the most expensive, badass battleship he can possibly fly in HiSec called a Marauder. There are many different Marauders in the game, but a well-fit Marauder is worth about 3 billion ISK on the lower end, and over 6 billion ISK on the higher end. So we're talking about 40 to 90 US dollars if people open up their wallet, buy the Plex, and then convert it to in-game money or ISK. So this person, who we will not name, buys something like a Kronos in this way, knowing it's the biggest, baddest thing he can fly in HiSec. He goes out there to hunt one of these dirty suspects, and he sees one, switches his safety to red so he can shoot them, and then, after some time, shoots them, and then within seconds, the Concord police are on him blowing up his ship, his big, beautiful, badass $50 ship, gone forever. So our wallet warrior made two mistakes. First, he obviously engaged the suspect while not paying attention to the suspect timer that had already expired by the time he actually shot him. So he engaged a normal law-abiding citizen, and the police came and blew up his ship. But the safety should have prevented him from doing that. Only he had set it to red, not yellow, meaning he can attack anyone, and the goddamn consequences be damned. Had it been on yellow, he would have been fine, or green to not participate in any PvP at all. But he had it to red. Unless you're a suicide ganker, there's absolutely no reason to have your safety set to red in HiSec. There are other instances where people will do almost the same thing, but use the consensual dueling system. By inviting people to duels, you can legally PvP in HiSec if both parties accept. And then the less experienced wallet warrior player loses. And instead of going and researching why they lost or getting some advice from more experienced players, they open up their wallet again, thinking if they fit their ship with even more expensive modules that they'll win this time, and then they die again, and again, and again, and the cycle continues. Another situation is when some inexperienced corporation or alliance leader thinks that their alliance would be far greater and more legit if they say, put up a space station. And there are many different types of space stations or citadels. And they can help with manufacturing or industry, but sometimes people put up space stations without even knowing what that particular space station does. But they put it up anyway, and even in high security space. A space station makes you eligible for a formal and legal declaration of war by any other corporation or alliance who also has a space station, meaning even in HiSec, if they declare war for a week or even longer, they can come and shoot any of your members and your space station in HiSec. And many people have no idea or have any of the firepower or numbers to defend it. These stations get blown up, or their players get blown up, and now we're not talking about $40. Now we're talking about quite often hundreds of bucks, maybe even thousands on the upper end. But the same applies to big badass capital ships outside of HiSec. Capital ships other than freighters aren't allowed in HiSec, but some people actually think, say in nullsec or lowsec, if you have a big, slow, lumbering carrier, let's say, designed to fight enemy NPCs that, oh, no one will mess with me because I'm in a big carrier. I've actually heard somebody say this, but this is wrong. No matter how big your ship is, if someone else has the numbers, the firepower, and the right counter and knowledge, that carrier is going to go down. You have only made yourself a more tempting target. And we haven't even touched on in-game scammers yet. They prey on the stupid. A lot of stupidity in EVE comes from, well, arrogance, which also comes from out of control emotions, which can make otherwise very smart people utterly idiotic. I'm also reminded of Carlo Cipolla's Laws of Stupidity, which applies to the EVE Online world in so many ways. This is all sort of meant in jest, but it's also disturbingly true. According to Cipolla, there are 4 types of people. There are the helpless, the intelligent, the bandits, and finally, the stupid. The stupid are actually the most dangerous and destructive type of people. Cipolla defines the stupid as someone or people who habitually do things that are destructive to themselves and other people around them. Sometimes lots of other people around them, but especially people in their close proximity. While intelligent people do constructive things for both themselves and other people around them. Helpless people, who may or may not be stupid or intelligent yet, they may simply be naive or uninformed in some way, but they are easy prey for bandits. And bandits, who are not particularly stupid, but they do things that benefit mostly themselves or possibly a few people around them, at great cost to the helpless. This pretty much sums up a lot of the social dynamic of EVE Online. I would push this point even further as it pertains to real life. I know people who play EVE Online who are not bandits in real life in any way, and yet when they get into the game, they sort of slip into that bandit category. In other scenarios, some people spend all day at work being extremely intelligent, but by the time they get home and get logged into EVE Online, that intelligence goes right out the window. Maybe it's because they see EVE as an escape or a release and they don't really want to play it competitively, so they do stupid stuff. Or maybe it's because they've already a few drinks in and they do stupid stuff. Or maybe it's just because they're plain tired or overly anxious to PvP and get a kill when they shouldn't be PvPing at all because their brain is dead. So they become stupid where they were otherwise quite intelligent. EVE Online is a fascinating arena to study human social nature, isn't it? Now, it's possible that some of you who are watching this, and let's face it, those of you who are less than average intelligence, you're already rushing to the comments to type something like, well, that's why I don't play EVE Online. I don't have the money to blow on internet spaceships, and I'm just going to lose them anyway. See, you're not getting it. Because to be minimally good at EVE, you don't have to spend lots of in-game or real-world money. Now, I'm sure developers would love to take your money, but the downside of this is that eventually that's going to burn most people out if they're constantly spending in either in-game money or opening up their wallet and just spinning their wheels without going anywhere in the game. To be good at EVE, even in PvP, requires an open mind, a willingness to adapt your tactics, learn from your mistakes, and acquire more knowledge. But it does not require a bigger and better or more badass ship. It does not require you to open your wallet any more than the Omega account subscription. Now eventually, if you play EVE long enough, you will fly these big, bad, beautiful spaceships. And you may even lose them, but you'll fly them well with the very good possibility of totally kicking ass. And even if you do open your wallet in these scenarios, well, that's okay, because you won't look like a total idiot by losing the ship to some sort of hubris assumption. In EVE Online, unlike any other game, I continue to learn an awful lot about human nature, and about my own human nature, about leadership, morale, energy, hubris, arrogance, and stupidity, and this is why I keep playing and have been going on about 15 years now. Alright, now just putting this out there, our EVE Online PvP corporation, Interstellar Booty Hunters, has been shifting to a higher energy state. We've recently formed a new alliance called Abyssal Booty Hunters with another corp called Abyssal Horizon. So if you're interested in joining us either as an individual or even another small gang-oriented PvP corporation, hit my character up in game, Maximillian Bonaparte. To be a good candidate, we want you to have played the game for about a month or two in a combat-focused way, Omega accounts preferred, but above all else, have a chill attitude and an open mind. Veterans and new bros are all welcome. Abyssal Booty Hunters is ascendant and active. Also, there's something else I really need to address here. I've got a few unfinished EVE Online story videos, And the reality is, they just don't get the views that they should get, and YouTube is my living now. So if you're someone who's just dying to have me complete those old unfinished stories, whether it be the Star Trek TNG and the EVE Online story or the Booty Hunter story, both of which I'll link in the description, you can incentivize this in several ways. You can subscribe to my Patreon at patreon.com/resurrected and message me there. You can send me a super thanks here in the YouTube comments, donate any amount you like, and put a message encouraging me to continue those storylines. Or you can actually donate a good chunk of ISK in the game EVE Online. Now I'm talking realistically something close to 1 billion ISK to go forward with those story videos, which would save me a subscription for a month on one of my EVE accounts. A man's gotta eat, you know? Again, check out the description for those details. Other than that, I'm looking forward to making new Star Trek or Star Wars videos next, because those often do actually earn me a living. And if you're interested in getting a customized Star Trek or even Star Wars render with any of the 3D assets I use in my Star Trek and Star Wars videos, consider becoming a patron at patreon.com/resurrected. Okay guys, be sure to comment for the retake. comment for the algorithm, subscribe, and like. Until next time, space friends.